again. In the reign of Delhi was attacked twice, right? In 1299 and 1302. But he adopted defensive measures, while Muhammad Tughlaq adopted attack policy, right? He in spite of defending himself, he attacked on the Mughals. Right. Second, Alauddin constructed a new garrison towns, while Tughlaq constructed a new garrison town. Rather than he converted the old forts the Khalji spent the taxes which is collected from the lands, and 50% of the peasants' yield was spending on the feeding of soldiers. While Tughlaq fed their army as the taxes which he collected from the same land. Right. The fourth one was we discussed that the salary of the soldiers. In Alauddin Khilji's administration, the soldiers had to be paid, and they had to be paid in cash rather than the iktas, rather than the lands. Iktas means land. Right. So to control the prices, what did he do? The merchants could not get the price they want. They determined the price so that the merchant could not increase the prices. Right. So they have to sell the products at the prescribed rates, otherwise they will be punished. But in the Muhammad Tughlaq, what he do? No doubt he also adopt the cash mode to pay the salary of the soldiers, but he introduced token currency. So the customers saved their gold and silver coins, and they began to counterfeited these currency very easily. The last one, Alauddin's administrative measures were quite successful, and Torrentials praised his reign for its cheap prices and efficient supplies of goods in the market. Right. So here you can see the Alauddin's measures were better than the Tughlaq's measures, right? Because he controlled the prices, he made the sufficient supply of goods and services, and he successfully defended his army, his region from the Mongols themselves. So Muhammad Tughlaq's administrative measures were a failure. Why they were failures? Because he adopted the policy of attacked, right? So he adopted attacked the policy, and his campaign into Kashmir was a disaster. So his plan to invade Transoxiana and disbanded his large army, right? When he attacked to another region, this disbanded his large army. Right. So the shifting of people to Daulatabad was also resented. It made the people resent because they have to leave their houses. Right. Moreover, he increased the taxes. Famine was there. So token currency was an increment in these failures. So here you can conclude that Tughlaq's administrative measures were considered as failures. No doubt, despite of these failures, we sometimes forget his failure. Why? Because it was the first time in the history of us in Delhi Sultanate when the Delhi Sultan planned to campaign against Mongol. Right? So they were planned to attack on Mongol. This was done in the first time of Indian history when a sultan attacked against the Mongol. So that was a very remembering moment of Tughlaq's administrative measures. Now, what about these two dynasties, the Sultanate in the 15th and 16th century? Now, you will notice that after the Tughlaqs, the Sayyid and Lodi dynasty ruled from Delhi and Agra until 1526. Right after Tughlaq, which dynasty comes? These were Sayyid and Lodi dynasty. Right by then, Jaunpur, Bengal, Malwa, Gujarat, Rajasthan, and entire South India, which was under the rule of Tughlaqs, Khaljis, they were becoming independent. So they in these regions became independent. They flourished in independent states and they prospered their capitals. So this was also the period which we saw the other ruling groups like Afghans and Rajputs. Now, after the Tughlaqs and the Lodi dynasty, which rulers came into Delhi? They were Afghans and Rajputs. Some of the states established in this period were small but very powerful. These states were very powerful and well administered by the rulers. The one of the rulers here we will talk about the Sher Shah Sur, which belongs to Sur dynasty, and he ruled over Delhi from 1540 to 1545. For 15 years, he ruled over Delhi. No doubt, he in his starting in his the career starting, he managed a small territory of his uncle in Bihar. But when he defeated the Mughal Emperor Humayun, right? So, firstly, he started his journey with the territory of his uncle in Bihar, and after that, he defeated the Mughal Emperor Humayun, right? About Humayun, we will learn in the next chapter, right? So, Sher Shah captured Delhi and established his own dynasty. Sher Shah, the Sur dynasty, ruled only for 15 years, but administration measures he adopted was marvelous. Yes, right. So the administration measures which he adopted, that was marvelous. So Alauddin Khalji, which he adopted the administration measures as you saw in the table. He, the Sher Shah Suri, also adopted some measures from the Khalji administration. Right. So Sher Shah's administration became the model, followed by great Emperor Akbar. Right. So when he consolidated the Mughal Empire, the Akbar also adopted the administration measures of Sher Shah. Right. So here we have completed this chapter. Who ruled over the. So in the third chapter, we learned about the five dynasty who initially ruled over Delhi. And in this chapter, we will deal with the Mughal Empire. When the Mughal Empire came to Delhi, right? And they ruled over Delhi for a long time. Different Mughal emperors came, and what did they do during their ruling time? Right. So this chapter is basically deal with the Mughal Empire. So ruling as large a territory as the Indian subcontinent with such a diversity of people, diverse culture was extremely difficult task for any ruler to accomplish in the Middle Ages. In the Middle years, what was happening? India was a subcontinent. Subcontinent means including today's India. There were Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran, Iraq, Bangladesh, Myanmar, all these combinedly known as Indian subcontinent. Right. So See, it was such a vast territory where the diverse peoples were living there. Their languages were different, their culture was different, and to deal with this with such a diversity was such a difficult task for the rulers to make them combine and rule over them. So, quite in contrast to their predecessors, the Mughals created an empire and accomplished what had inherited seemed possible only for short periods of time. Right? So, predecessors means before, right? So, before Mughals, the creation of empire and was only for a short period. You saw that before the Khalji and Tughlaq's rule, there was the capture of South Indian portion also by the rulers. But at the time of at the time of Tughlaqs, what was happening? The small territories like Bengal, South India was becoming independent, right? So this accomplished was for a short time period. After some time, these regions got independent. But from the later half of the 16th century, they expanded their kingdom from Agra and Delhi. And until in the 17th century, they controlled nearly all of the subcontinent. So by the 16th century, they ruled over Delhi and near the Agra. But by the 17th century, they controlled over large territory of India from the western side, from the eastern side, from the northern side, and southern side also. So they controlled moreover almost all the subcontinent. They imposed structures of administration and ideas of governors. They outlasted their rule, leaving a political legacy that succeeding rulers of the subcontinent could not ignore. Now we are talking about the Mughal emperor. Mughal emperor ruled in such a way, in such good way, their ideas, their administrations, the way in which they were governing their state, their region, it was marvelous, and it was followed by the successor rulers, right? So like a political legacy means they did the work so efficiently, so effectively. These work, these administration system, these ruling system, these rules became the legacy which could not be ignored by the successor rulers, right? So that is this is the result of these political legacy that our prime minister in recent days, in these days, our prime minister of India at 15 August, he addresses the nation on the ramparts of the Red Fort in Delhi, who was but which was the residence of the Mughal emperors. Why? Because it has great importance. The Mughal emperors ruled very effectively, very efficiently. Their rules were marvelous. Their administration system was very good. So that's why, in the respect of these things, we, our prime minister, addressed the nation on the Red Fort. Here you can see the picture of Red Fort. At Independence Day, our Prime Minister always addresses the nation from there. Now, the question arises: who were the Mughals? We are talking about the Mughals. They ruled very efficiently, but very effectively, and all that. We are talking about the Mughals so much, but who were the Mughals? Right? Who were they? From where they come? The Mughals were descendants of two great lineages of rulers. Right? So there were two different rulers of different regions from where they come. From their mother side, they were descendants of Genghis Khan. who is also known as Genghis Khan after, right? So from mother side, they belong to the dynasty of Genghis Khan, and who was the Mongol ruler and who ruled over part of China and Central Asia, right? So from mother side, they belong to Genghis Khan, who was a Mongol ruler. Remember it, who was a Mongol ruler and who ruled over China and Central Asia. Right. From father side, what about the father side? They were the successor of Timur, who ruled over Iran, Iraq, and modern day Turkey, right? So here you can see the two dynasty they belongs. Their mother belongs to Genghis Khan, who is a Mongol, and from father side they belong to Timur, right? So however, the Mughals did not like to be called Mughal or Mongol. Mughal word comes from the Mongol, because from the mother side they belong to the Mongol rulers, right? So they never liked to be called Mughals or Mongol. Why? Why they do not like from their mother side to be addressed? But because Genghis Khan's memory was associated with the massacre of innumerable people, because he was a very cruel. Genghis Khan was very cruel. He killed many of people without any fault, right? So that's why they did not like to be called Mughals. Now what did they like? They liked to be called Timur, right? So Mughals were also linked with Uzbeks. You have to learn these two things: Mongols and Uzbeks. So Uzbeks were the competitors of Mongol. So there was always a fighting between Mongols and Uzbeks, right? So they were competitors. On the other hand, Mughals were proud to be Timurid ancestry, not least of all because their great ancestor had captured Delhi in 1398, because Timur captured the Delhi in 1398. Now look at the picture. From this picture you will be able to understand how they like to be a Timur. In this picture the center position is of Timur. There is this picture is of Timur, and after that there is Akbar and um, uh, their successors, like you can see in this picture Qasim Khan and Mir Shah, all these Mir Shah, and this is Akbar, then Humayun, and all these successors. Yeah, right. One by one, we will talk about these emperors. Right. So first is Babar. Babar son was Akbar. Akbar's son was Shah Jahan, and all that. So they always make such paintings as the successor of Timur. So all the emperors liked to be this painting. In the Timur was in center, and all the successor of Timur's were sitting either sides. So all these are the successors. So he is at the top. After then his son and his son and his son and his son. Right, like that. Now, what was about the Mughal military campaigns? Mughal military campaigns deals with the fouts. With the fights, they fought against other rulers and captured their dynasty. How they expand their dynasty, how they expand the Delhi, right? So this is all about their military campaigns, when they fight and with which ruler they fought, all this, right? So Babur, the first Mughal emperor, Babur was the first Mughal emperor. You must remember the name of the ruler as well as some of the ruler. For the some of the ruler you have to learn their time period also, right? I will tell you in between. So first is the Babur, is the first ruler, Mughal emperor, and succeeded to the throne of Fargana in 1494 when he was only 12 years old. He was too young of 12 years when he get the dynasty of Fargana in 1494, but he forced to leave this dynasty by the invasion of Mongol group. When the Mongols invaded on Fargana, he have to leave, right? So on the Fargana, there was an invasion by the Mongols as well as by the Uzbeks. After leaving the Fargana, what he do? He wandering and he seized Kabul in 1504, and in 1526 he defeated the Sultan of Delhi, Ibrahim Lodi, and Panipat, and captured Delhi and Agra. This is most important movement because it was the first time of Mughal emperor who defeated the emperor of Delhi and become the ruler of Delhi. So at that time, in the last chapter, you learned that the last dynasty was the Lodi dynasty, right? So after the Lodi dynasty, who ruled over Delhi? That was Babur, right? So Babur ruled over Fargana first time. Once the Mongol and the Uzbeks invade over him, he had to leave. Then he seized Kabul in 1504, and in 1526 he attacked on Abraham Lodi. That was the first battle of Panipat, right? Three battles you have heard about Panipat. So this was the first battle of Panipat. Panipat की first लड़ाई, right? It was between Babur and Ibrahim Lodi, in which the Lodi was defeated and Babur became the ruler of Delhi and Agra. So that is the most important event of our history. Clear? Now, what about the other campaigns, military campaigns by the other rulers, by the Mughals, right? So we will learn one by one about these campaigns through the table. So have a look on the table. So first was Babur, and his rule was only from 1526 to 1530. Only 4 years he ruled over Delhi and Agra. In 1526, as I told you, it is very important date because it was related to the first battle of Panipat, between in which Ibrahim Lodi was defeated, and the fight was between Babur and Lodi and his Afghan supporters, right, who were supporting the Lodi. The second battle he fought, which was in the next year, 1527, in which he defeated the Rajput ruler Rana Sanga and his allies who were supporting the Rana Sanga at Khauna, right? So in the second battle, he defeated the Rana Sanga. In the third year, in the third coming year, 1528, he again defeated the Rajputs at Chanderi, right, and established control over Agra and Delhi before his death. Now, what would happen for his successor? He had captured the territory of Agra and Delhi by defeating the Ibrahim Lodi, Rana Sanga, and Rajputs, right? So, no doubt, he ruled only for 4 years, but his ruling time was very important. The next come was Humayun. Humayun was the son of Babur, and he ruled from 1530 to 1540, and after that 1555 to 1556. It means there is a gap. Gap means in this gap, obviously he will be defeated, right? So Humayun divided his inheritance according to the will of his father. Now what is happening in our society? The father's property is divided into his sons, right? So father's property always divided among his sons. So after the death of Babur, what did the Humayun do? He divided his all the properties among his brothers, right? So his brothers were given such a province. The amounts of his brother Mirza Kamran weakened Humayun's cause against Afghan competitors. But the brothers have very jealous type of feeling with one another. So at that time, for the power, the brother killed his real brother. Right? Even this process is going. Not only brothers, even son also killed his father for the throne, right? So that trend was going on at that time. So Sher Khan defeated Humayun at Chausa because Mirza Kamran, who was the brother of Humayun, he was against the Humayun, and the result is that the Sher Khan defeated Humayun at Chausa in 1599 and Kanauj in 1540, forcing him to flee to Iran. Now Humayun was forced to flee to Iran because he was defeated. Now, next, what was the next? In Iran, Humayun received the help from the uh, Safavid Shah. Now, you have to remember about Safavid Shah. Now, what was happened? By the help of Safavid Shah, he captured Delhi again in 1555. Now, his rule was again there, right? So after 1540, he was defeated and he flee to Iran. And again in 1555, he recaptured the Delhi, right? So, but died the next year after an accident in this building. When he was going to the library of this building, yeah, it is pretend that he might be slipped down from the stairs and he died. Now, after the Humayun, Akbar was the successor of Humayun. Akbar was the son of Humayun. Akbar was 13 years old when he became emperor. He was too young, like Babur. Right? Babur became the emperor in the age of 12 years, and he became the emperor in the age of 13 years. Akbar reign can be divided into three parts. Of Akbar's ruling time, we can divide it into three groups. First is 1556 to 1570, right? 14 years. Akbar became independent to the regent Behram Khan and other members of his domestic staff, because at the age of 13 he was too young and he was taken care from their Behram Khan and by the domestic staff. But at this time in 1556, now he became independent. Military campaigns were launched by the Akbar against Suris and the Afghans, right? So, and against the neighboring kingdoms Malwa and Gondwana. So that was the time when Akbar was invaded over Suris, Afghans, Malwa, Gondwana, and he suppressed the revolt of his half brother Mirza Hakim. Half brother means uh, which is from stepmother, right? So he also, because he was creating the problem, and that's why the Humayun was defeated and he had to flee Iran. Now what did the Akbar do? He finished this page. He finished Mirza Hakim, right? And the Uzbeks also. In 1568, Sisodia campaign of Chittor was seized, and in 1569, Ranthambore. Now these regions were also in the uh, control of Akbar. Right? So firstly, he fought against Suris, Afghans, Malwa, and Gondwana. and Mirza Hakim was also defeated by the Akbar, and after that he captured the Sisodia capital of Chittor and Ranthambore in 1569. This was the first period, and the second period of his reign was 1570 to 1585. 15 years period was there. So Akbar ruled over Delhi for a long period. You can see there. Military campaigns were started in Gujarat and that were followed by in Bihar, Bengal, and Odisha. Now you can see Akbar was going to be continuously military campaign to capture more and more territory from western side as well as from the eastern side. From western side Gujarat and eastern side Bihar, Bengal, and Orissa. Right. So these campaigns were complicated by the 1579 to 1580 revolt in support of Mirza Hakim. Now, what problem he faced? Again, Mirza Hakim creating problem in 1579 to 1580. The third period was the 1585 to 1605. This was the period of expansion of Akbar's empire. Now, one by one, another one after another, there were military campaigns, and the Akbar was going to capture more and more territory in this time. So the campaigns were launched in the northwest, right? So Kandahar was seized from the Safavids, right? Kashmir was also annexed, Kabul, right? Kabul was also annexed after the death of Mirza Hakim. Now the chapter is over of Mirza Hakim, right? Now he was died. So campaigns in the Deccan started, Berar, Khandesh and parts of Ahmednagar were annexed. So mostly Akbar defeated all the rulers of the Indian subcontinent. He expanded his territory from the northern side, northwestern side, northeastern side and even the southern side. But in the last years of his reign, Akbar was distracted by the rebellion of Prince Salim. Prince Salim was a son of Akbar, who became the against of Akbar, and that's why Akbar was distracted from his military campaign because his own son was against him, right? And Salim was known as Jahangir when he became the emperor, right? So both are the same person, Salim and Jahangir. Prince Salim was known as the Jahangir when he became the emperor. Yes, Vika. The next topic we will continue in our next lecture.